In the next few seconds, your power could go out for days, and most people won't even realize it until it's too late. The refrigerator hum cuts out mid-cycle, the house goes strangely quiet, and your ears strained against a silence that feels wrong. Outside, the streetlights die in a slow wave, block by block, not all at once. That pattern alone tells you something important. This is not a tripped breaker in your kitchen. This is a system losing its grip. Somewhere miles away, a transformer has failed or a line has sagged into a tree. The machine that keeps 40 states running is now fighting to hold itself together. Most people spend the next 10 minutes checking their phone instead of checking their situation. That single delay is where the real danger begins. A blackout is never really about darkness. It is about time and how fast your hidden reserves start draining the moment the grid goes silent. The electric grid does not fail like a lamp with a broken filament. It fails through loss of synchrony, a concept almost nobody outside the utility world understands. Every large generator on the grid spins in near-perfect rhythm with every other generator, locked together near 60 cycles per second. When one big power plant trips offline or a major line goes down, the remaining generators must instantly cover the missing power. They do this by pulling energy from their own spinning mass. As they do, the frequency of the whole system begins to sag. If that sag goes too far, automatic protection equipment starts disconnecting pieces of the grid to protect itself from damage. That protective reflex is what turns a single fault into a rolling collapse. Most people picture a cascading blackout as some dramatic chain reaction. The truth is closer to simple thermodynamics. Current that used to flow through 5 lines suddenly reroutes through 3. Those 3 lines heat up faster. They sag closer to trees and towers. Relays trip to stop the overheating, and the current reroutes again onto even fewer paths. Eventually, the whole region fractures into disconnected islands that cannot support themselves. This is the part almost nobody plans for. Restoration afterward is not a simple flip of a switch. Large transformers, the ones that step voltage up and down across the grid, cannot simply be re-energized on a whim. Reconnecting them at the wrong moment can destroy them permanently through a surge called inrush current. Engineers have to sequence the grid back to life with real care. Sometimes they start from a small number of power plants built to self-start without outside electricity, a rare capability called black start. From there, they slowly build small, stable islands of power. Those islands link together, almost like a crystal growing one careful layer at a time. This is why officials rarely give an honest timeline in the first hours. They are not hiding information. They genuinely do not know yet how much physical damage exists. They cannot say how many fragile restoration sequences will actually hold. The survival protocol has to begin with accepting this physics. Assuming the power will be back by dinner is the first mistake that leads to every mistake after it. The Northeast blackout of 2003 is the clearest evidence of how fast this unravels. A software bug delayed an alarm at a control room in Ohio. Operators failed to see a developing overload building on the system. Within about 7 minutes, the failure cascaded across 8 states and part of Canada. Roughly 50 million people lost power in a single afternoon. Water pumping stations lost pressure within hours of the first trip. Cell networks degraded fast as backup batteries at towers began to drain. Most affected households had assumed, without ever saying it out loud, that the grid simply could not fail at that scale. The lesson from that event, and from nearly every major outage since, is simple. Redundancy in the system is real, but it is timed, not infinite. Your backup water pressure is running on a hidden clock. So is your phone battery, and so is your frozen food. The protocol that matters most is the one that starts before that clock begins ticking. Before the blackout ever hits, you front-load stored potential while the infrastructure is still working for you. Fill clean containers with tap water while it is still pressurized and treated. Once pumps stop, whatever remains in the pipes is a short-lived gift, not a guarantee. Set your freezer to its coldest setting a day ahead if a storm or grid strain is forecast. Then commit to opening that door as little as possible. Every opening trades stored cold for warm air, and it starts a food safety countdown you cannot pause. Charge every device you rely on, then shift your habits away from power-hungry screens. A simple battery-powered radio can run for days on the same charge that barely gets a smartphone through an afternoon. Fill your vehicle's fuel tank early, not to escape anywhere, but because it becomes a sealed container of portable energy. With careful outdoor ventilation, that stored fuel can charge devices and provide limited heat later. None of this is a shopping list. It is a sequence built around decay rates, designed to protect what spoils fastest and what turns dangerous fastest. Once the outage begins, your home effectively becomes a small, closed system. The biggest hidden threat inside that system is entropy. Heat leaks out in winter. Cold leaks in during summer. Clean water slowly turns questionable. Food safety becomes a countdown instead of a given fact of life. Most people brace for darkness and completely overlook a quieter threat, which is the loss of conversion devices. That means every appliance that turns electricity into something else you depend on. Pumps convert electricity into water pressure. Compressors convert electricity into cold air. Routers convert electricity into information you can trust. When all of that stops at once, the real fight begins. It is not a fight against the dark, it's a fight against the slow creep of disorder inside your own walls, and slowing that creep is the entire point of real preparedness. Thermal management becomes its own survival discipline once the heating or cooling stops working. In cold weather, uncontrolled air leaking around doors and windows is the fastest path to an unlivable room. Before any blackout hits, walk your home and find the drafts around doors, attic hatches, and window frames. Seal them with tape, towels, or plastic film while you still have the time and light to do it properly. Choose one small room as your living zone, close its interior doors, and concentrate people, blankets, and insulation inside it. Layered, loose clothing traps warm air near your body far better than one thick, heavy layer ever will. In hot weather, the physics simply reverses. Sunlight keeps adding heat to your home while ventilation has stopped removing it. Closing blinds, avoiding activity during peak heat, and drinking water on a steady schedule become the tools that keep your core body temperature out of dangerous territory. Neither strategy requires electricity. Both require that you understand the problem before you were forced to solve it in the dark. Energy triage becomes critical the moment you rely on any backup power source, whether it is a battery station, a vehicle inverter, or a portable generator. Every stored watt has to buy a function, not comfort, and that forces some uncomfortable math. A refrigerator compressor can draw several times its normal running power just to start up. Cheap inverters often fail on that startup surge rather than on steady, predictable draw. Battery packs also carry their own protective limits. Pulling too much power too fast can trigger a shutdown, even while real energy still sits locked inside the pack. If you run a generator, it has to sit far outside your home. Position it so exhaust never drifts back toward doors or windows, because carbon monoxide is invisible, odorless, and it kills quietly while people sleep. Most post-disaster carbon monoxide deaths happen because someone moved a generator or a grill closer to steal a little extra warmth. That single decision has ended more lives than the original storm in several documented disasters across the country. The Texas winter crisis of 2021 is the clearest modern proof that a blackout is rarely one system failing alone. It is usually several systems failing together at once. Natural gas wellheads froze, instrumentation iced over across the state, gas pressure dropped, and power plants that were never designed for that kind of cold began tripping offline in a chain reaction. Millions of people lost electricity for days at a stretch. Water systems lost both pressure and basic safety at the same time. Hundreds of deaths were later linked to hypothermia and to carbon monoxide poisoning from desperate, improvised heating attempts. The uncomfortable evidence from that event is that modern infrastructure is deeply interdependent. Electricity depends on gas. Gas depends on electricity for compression and control. Water depends on both of those systems staying online. When people assume any single system is untouchable, they are almost always wrong. The households that survived best had already built redundancy across multiple systems instead of trusting one point of failure. Water and sanitation fail in a pattern most people never expect, because water often keeps trickling from the tap long after it stops being trustworthy. Municipal systems rely on continuous pressure to keep contamination out of the pipes. When that pressure drops, a phenomenon called backflow can pull unsafe water in through tiny cracks and cross connections. This means the water still coming from your faucet during an extended outage may carry more risk than water you already stored before the event began. If treatment becomes necessary, the science is simple and unforgiving. A rolling boil for at least 1 full minute reliably kills waterborne pathogens, though it costs fuel you may not want to spend early. Chemical disinfection with a correctly measured dose of plain, unscented household bleach offers a fuel-free alternative. It needs a full contact time of at least 30 minutes to actually work. Filtration adds another layer of safety, since it physically removes larger organisms like protozoa and bacteria. Most portable filters do not remove viruses or dissolved chemical contaminants, which is why combining methods matters more than trusting any single one. Sanitation collapses just as fast once toilets stop flushing reliably, and the real danger is rarely the smell. It is transmission through hands and shared surfaces. Gastrointestinal illness spreads faster than people expect inside a crowded, stressed household. It spreads mostly through touch, not through the air around you. A simple lined container with absorbent material and a tight seal kept physically apart from any food preparation area prevents the most common transmission path. Hand washing with ordinary soap and even a small amount of water still outperforms hand sanitizer on visibly dirty hands. Soap physically lifts oils and microbes away, rather than simply killing what already sits on the skin. This is the part of preparedness almost nobody focuses on, yet historically it has caused more sickness after disasters than the initiating event itself. Information becomes its own survival resource once uncertainty sets in, because uncertainty manufactures rumor faster than any official channel can correct it. A battery-powered radio used on a fixed schedule gives you verified updates without draining your limited devices. A short, written household plan prevents fatigue from turning small disagreements into real conflict inside your own home. Set check-in times. Assign simple roles to each person. Decide in advance when refrigerated food crosses from edible into risky territory based on time and temperature together. Darkness also changes behavior on a wider scale outside your walls. Intersections without working signals see more collisions. Elevators can trap occupants for hours. Pharmacies become flashpoints once refrigerated medication is at risk of spoiling. The households that stay calmest are rarely the ones with the most equipment stockpiled in a closet. They're the ones who know exactly how much water, fuel, and time they actually have left. Community becomes a genuine multiplier during an extended outage, but only when it stays organized rather than fearful. A neighbor with a medical device may need a scheduled window to recharge it from your battery station. A household with a safe way to cook can share hot food before it spoils in a dead freezer. A block that shares verified information rather than half-heard rumors tends to stay calmer than one that does not. The hard rule underneath it all is verification. Trading outdated details in the dark can send people into dangerous, crowded lines for fuel or water that already ran out. Security during a blackout has less to do with confrontation than most people assume, and far more to do with reducing accidents and easy opportunities. Open flames from candles multiply every one of those hazards at once. Most post-outage house fires start from an unattended candle or from a makeshift heater placed too close to bedding in the very room a family crowded into for warmth. A calm, steady routine does more for real safety than any single piece of equipment. Locked exterior doors, a predictable check-in schedule, and clear pathways matter more than gear. Reading the outage itself becomes its own survival skill as hours stretch into a full day. A clean restoration behaves like a firm, stable wave, with voltage returning solidly and appliances starting without hesitation. A dirty restoration pulses instead. Power returns for a few minutes with visibly dim lighting, then drops out again. That pattern suggests an overloaded or damaged feeder struggling under partial load. Multiple audible clicks or flickers from nearby equipment usually mean automated protection is repeatedly trying and failing to clear a fault. That typically signals broken lines or flooded substations, and it pushes the likely timeline from hours into days. The single most dangerous moment in the entire event is often the false restoration. Partial power tempts an entire neighborhood to plug in every appliance at once. That sudden demand spike can drag voltage back down and trip the system again. It can also permanently damage compressors, electronics, and batteries already stressed by the outage. Keeping major loads switched off, then reconnecting them slowly in stages, is not caution for its own sake. It is basic self-preservation grounded in real electrical behavior. Zooming out, blackouts are becoming more consequential, not because engineers forgot how to build reliable systems. The safety margin between normal operation and instability has been quietly shrinking for years. Demand keeps climbing as more of daily life becomes electrified. Transmission lines run hotter during more frequent heat waves. In many regions, vegetation regrows faster than maintenance crews can clear it. Aging transformers, some installed decades ago, are reaching the end of their design life at the same moment extreme weather tests them harder than ever before. Hurricane Maria's impact on Puerto Rico in 2017 showed how catastrophic this can become when transmission infrastructure suffers severe physical damage. Full restoration for some areas stretched out for nearly a year afterward. Households that treated that event as a short-term outage burned through fuel, batteries, and patience within the first week, long before real help could reliably arrive. The deeper truth beneath all of this is that convenience has quietly trained most people to confuse constant supply with permanent certainty. Electricity is not comfort. It is the scaffolding that keeps water clean, keeps food safe, keeps medical equipment running, and keeps entire cities coordinated instead of fractured into isolated households. When that scaffolding disappears, you see in very literal terms how quickly order breaks down. Someone has to actively spend energy to hold that order together. The real survival protocol is not one dramatic action taken the night the power fails. It is a quiet discipline practiced in advance while the grid is still working in your favor and preparation still feels unnecessary. Store water while it is still clean. Learn your home's true energy needs before you are forced to guess them in the dark. Understand the difference between a system that is healing and one sliding toward a longer collapse. When the lights finally do go out, one thing remains fully under your control. It is the system you already built, quietly, inside your own walls, long before the blackout ever arrived.